Blog Talk Radio.
The White House Report.
Today's White House Report is very personal. The nation lost a fighter and a friend. I lost a Baltimore friend, Congressman Elijah Cummings, dead at the age of 68, the head of Government Oversight and Reform. He was serving the people until death. The last time we saw Congressman Cummings was in September at the Congressional Black Caucus. He had been ill. He had been fighting complication issues from a heart malady that he's been dealing with for a couple of years. But in the span of that time, he still stayed as the head of Government Oversight and Reform, taking on issues of impeachment, the impeachment inquiry of this president, Donald John Trump. But meanwhile, what we do know is that Congressman Cummings, as of last week, was on a Democratic conference call, trying to serve the people. But we know that the congressman overnight succumbed to his malady stemming from a heart issue with complications. I talked to Cleveland Congresswoman Marcia Fudge this morning, who would normally text with the congressman at least once a week. She had this to say about her friend and fellow congressman.
The country has lost a great leader, a statesman, and a friend.
Once again, Cleveland Congresswoman Marcia Fudge. Elijah Cummings leaves to mourn his wife, Maya Rockeymoore, and children. He leaves the city to mourn his loss, and a nation as well. What I will say about my friend who I would text, who I knew way before Washington, who told me that it was amazing that both of us came from Baltimore and sit in these lofty positions in Washington, D.C. What I will say to my friend at this moment in time, rest in peace and power, my friend, until we see each other again. Elijah Cummings, dead at the age of 68. April Ryan, AURN News.
This is a Donaldson Files. Tom Donaldson, Coco Konski. This is our special 30 minutes overtime to make up for the technical problem we had a couple of nights ago. And before we go any further, again, I want to kind of also give my condolences to, let's say, the families of Elijah Cummings, to those who he served, and those who worked for him. May he rest in peace. Coco?
Absolutely. No, I mean, I guess it was a total shock to me this morning when I woke up and I heard the news. He was a great American, and he's obviously going to be severely missed, especially during the times we're having now. So, yeah. Yeah.
Well, now, the other thing here, before we get into what we're going to do, we're going to finish up our discussion of the Democrats' debate and race, and then we're going to go into the NBA in China, and because I want to kind of follow up there, because I know we've discussed this with other industries, and we're kind of put in summary, and then after about 30 minutes, we'll head right into the Batchelor pad. With L.A. Batchelor. I know he's got some good guests lined up, including Dr. Leon, Nick Atasa, Mike Patton will be joining him as well. So, stay tuned. Normally, for those people who are saying, where's L.A. Batchelor? Trust me, ladies and gentlemen, the Batchelor pad will be joining us on the Batchelor News Radio Network right after this. So, 25 minutes from now. Okay. Like I say, you and I were talking, and once again, the Donaldson Files on the cutting edge. Again, I don't know how this is all going to play out, but as of about 2 hours ago, a ceasefire in the Syria area, and Syria has been declared, at least in the case of Turkey, has agreed to a ceasefire. My understanding, the Kurds have not yet gotten on board, so I don't know what all that means. It just simply means we discussed the possibility that you may end up with a buffer zone between the Kurds and the Turks, and I suspect that that's maybe where we're headed to right now, but we discussed that yesterday, and again, this is just breaking. I'm not going to sit back and say it's a done deal, because it's not a done deal. It just the Turks have now agreed at this point. And I suspect is, and if I understand this correctly, the sanctions will be removed after the ceasefire. That's my understanding, but we'll see how this all plays out. All right. I wanted to kind of, talk very briefly. I know we had a chance, to talk about, and this piece came up from the Boston Herald. And because we talked about last night, Alexander Cortez endorsed, going to endorse Bernie Sanders. And the writer makes the observation this might actually help Elizabeth Warren. Because basically, because now she, let's just put it this way, when the most radical congressperson doesn't endorse you, but endorses the other person, does this aid in the effort or maybe take a little bit out of the fear of Elizabeth Warren, or at least say that she gets a chance to move as the general election gets into place toward the center? Your thoughts, Coco?
Right. I mean, I love my Warren, love her. I think she's the most viable candidate we have.
Yeah. Well,
yesterday, and I was thinking about it, what you were saying, and you're absolutely right. The other candidates now, Beto, Mayor Pete, they're all now looking for VP spots. That's what I truly believe. And if they're not, they ought to be. They ought to be.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to say in the case of Beto, he's done. I mean, he's, after his performance the other night, and just quite frankly, he's kind of, this particular election came off kind of goofy. And when you look at the fact that you got other candidates, you got Castro, you got Mayor Pete, who I think right now would be my favorite. If I'm making a betting man, he would be my favorite for the VP slot. And we talked about this yesterday when we looked at the debate. I kind of viewed it as a performance of, okay, this guy is going for the VP. He's not really attacking Elizabeth hard. I mean, he basically questioned her how she's going to pay for everything, but so is everybody else. And he kind of more punched down about Beto and his confrontation with Galbert as opposed to punching up. So my thought is that, this is where he's headed, and I think the others are as well. And I personally think Booker is definitely advertising himself. I mean, he hasn't attacked anybody. I mean, he's basically saying, let's all get along. And I'm thinking, why don't you just simply say, please select me as your VP because I love you all. and I would say those, of all of the candidates, those would be the top two for the VP slots of everybody who's up there. That's my view. Your thoughts? What we're going to do, we're going to be right back here. This is Tom Donaldson and the Donaldson Files on the Batchelor News Radio Network.
Hey, this is L.A. Batchelor reminding you, if you're looking for real discussion on sports, politics, religion, and other topics, you need to join us on Mondays at 6 p.m. Eastern at WCOMFM.org, on Tuesdays at 7 p.m. at blogtalkradio.com/LA-Batchelor, and on Thursdays at the same web address. Follow us on Facebook at Pad Nation, on Twitter, Pad Nation, the number 2 at Twitter, LinkedIn, and you can email us with your requests, your comments, your concerns, anything you want at our email address at LABatchelor with a T, BATCHELOR 40 at gmail.com. Follow us on Facebook and Pad Nation, Instagram, and of course, if you missed any part of our broadcast, make sure you go to thebachelorpadnetwork.com and listen and enjoy the Bachelor Pad.
Oh my.
Yes, this is the don't forget this is the Bat. And Coco, how you doing?
I'm doing great.
Good. All right. So I guess as we were talking, and we kind of lost you for a couple of seconds there. Again, as I stated, if you look at the VP candidates or the people who I would say are in the top of that list, I'm going to look at Booker, Cory Booker, and I'm going to look at Mayor Pete as the top two. That's my thought. That's my thought. I mean, only because Booker is almost advertised himself, but he does have some strengths that, let's say, in my view, Kamala Harris doesn't have. And Mayor Pete, basically, his last performance demonstrated rather quite nicely that he's well-spoken and from the Midwest. He understands Midwesterners, and I think, and you got to basically capture some of that. You basically have to have the Midwest on your side if the Democrats are going to win, and if Elizabeth Warren's going to win. And I still say, as I stated all along, she's going to. I kind of was the first to say she's going to be the nominee.
Right. I'm in agreement with you. I think she's going to be the nominee. I really do. I mean, because we really haven't heard much from like Kamala or anybody really else. So I mean, who else is left?
Yeah. Well, it really is. I mean, other than Michael Bloomberg is once again talking about coming into the race, but my view of Michael Bloomberg is that I don't see him being a factor. I really don't. And I don't think Tom Steyer, the other billionaire, helped himself at all in that last debate.
Oh, God, no. Like, he was just being a little bitch.
Yeah.
I'm sorry to say, but that's what he was doing. Yeah. It's just like, yeah, I guess you're right. It's like, God, just have some balls and stand up for yourself. I'm sorry. But, that's how I felt.
I mean, yeah. And it's like, I mean, my thought was, I mean, he kind of disappeared, and and when he did talk, it was like, oh wow, that's rather unimpressive.
Right. I mean, I did catch a glimpse of that.
Yeah. And my thought was, when I'm listening to this, I'm saying, dude, you just got finished spending hundreds of millions. You've already got millions of dollars, and this is the best you come up with. I mean, you bought your way on the stage. Do something with it. Just do something with it. So, but as I say, I mean, because I didn't see, and we talked about it yesterday, I didn't see anything that Joe Biden did that helped him at all. I just didn't see it. And I think this was one of those debates where, they came after her, and I won't say, I would just say, she deflected as well as she's going to deflect it, and basically there were times she got a little spirited, but for the most part, Elizabeth was she is what she is. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I don't think she stood out.
Okay.
But in a debate
at the same time, like, she holds her own.
Yeah,
I don't really see anybody doing that.
Yeah.
She holds her own.
Yeah, I guess maybe the way I'm going to say it is, she wasn't spectacular, but she didn't hurt herself.
Right, exactly.
She did make the gaffe. She actually has complete sentences. There were times with Joe Biden, I swear to God, dude, you're not, I'm trying to figure out where the noun and the where the subject and the object is and your verb. But in her case, she was steady. That's it. She was steady. Not spectacular, but steady. And that's all she needed to be. No big mistakes. And
right.
And when you're the leader, that could be good enough. And when the best person who probably performed on that stage is in fourth and fifth place, well, it's not like he jumped 3 or 4 steps. And the other person I felt, quite frankly, didn't hurt himself was Bernie Sanders, as we talked about yesterday. I mean, two things. Number one, I hate to be, kind of, blue, but black, kind of a black humor on this. Black humor on this, but half of me was thinking, I hope he doesn't die.
Well, no, and I was. It's so true. Listen, and there's there's stressful jobs, and there's just jobs that you just don't come back from recovering. I know because I'm dating someone in a very stressful job, and it's how do I explain this without, sounding callous? There's some jobs that are so stressful that people just start dropping, that you're basically working until one of you has a heart attack or one of you collapses, and then they just replace you. I know you could say that about any job, really, but, when it comes to politics or it comes to the film business, that's pretty much what it is. You work like these 16, 17-hour days, or in politics, you're basically working 24/7, and it's not uncommon for those to suffer from like a stroke or a heart attack. And then there's people who, when they do suffer from a heart attack, they just keep going because that's all they know how to do. Because it's like those who retire, like they don't know what to do, so they say, screw retirement, I'm just going to keep working until I die. And there are people like that, and maybe Bernie is one of those. Maybe that's just the way it is. And if that's just, then kudos to him. You fight the fight and you just keep doing what you're doing. Like I said yesterday, if that was my situation, there's no way in hell I'd let my husband keep going for that. There's just no way, Yeah. I would put my foot down on that immediately, saying, no, enough is enough. Your health is way more important than a stupid job, regardless how many lives you're going to save. Maybe that's just me being selfish, but that's just me. And there's just to a point where it's like, is your health more important, or, is the job more important?
Yeah. Well, I guess like I say, we'll find out soon enough, where it goes. Where happens down the road. So we'll see how this all plays out. Okay. The other thing I wanted to kind of hit base with is China, the NBA, LeBron James, and I'm going to make a statement here. Is that I know you and I have talked about this, and there's that. I guess that's catch-22. No one side of the equation. When you're in China, you know the rules, and the rules are you're going to do what they tell you to do, or
of course.
They'll send you packing. On the other side of the equation, and this is what we talked about, is there's also this aspect of values that we have, and it's and my the point I've made from the very beginning is that we're allowing the Chinese in some ways to dictate to us our own values, in the sense that they're saying we're going to censor yourself. And about this, I like LeBron James. I respect the guy. I like the guy. I like the way he plays.
I love what he does for his community. I love the fact that he built these schools. Like, I love that.
Yeah.
But what I have a problem with, what I had a huge problem with, and I think there are a lot of people that will agree with me, and I've had people that agree with me who have commented on my posts and say, no, you're absolutely right, is the fact that he wanted to push it. There was a tweet that he wrote about saying, I understand, blah, 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 but why couldn't you guys wait a week, until, we were done with the game? And it's like, to me, that just screams you just care more about your making your money. LeBron cares about LeBron more than, what's going on in the world. Like, this is not just about basketball. This is about human rights. And if you're too, blind to see that, then I don't know what to say to you. I don't know what to say to you. Like, I'll give you another example. Chan Yun-fat, actor, totally supportive of Hong Kong rights. And, he says, I'll take a lesser pay, but at least I'm not shilling for the Chinese government.
Yeah, and that's the thing. That's what really, because here's the thing. if you're going to be,
and I just want to say something really quickly. I saw the South Park episode.
Oh, yes, did you? Great.
Okay,
yes.
Did you see it?
Yes, I did.
Okay, so let me first say, I turned it on. My boyfriend and I were watching it, and listen, he works in the film business, so he knows all about it when it comes to like censorship in the Chinese market. And he's laughing, and he goes, "This is funny, but this isn't really funny because this is exactly what we go through in the business." And he was just like, "This is so accurate, it's scary."
Yeah.
And I mean, I was laughing so hard because it was like, yeah, he was. I mean, obviously, I'm not gonna tell, like, I can't divulge anything, but he was telling me certain situations where we know the part where they had the two Chinese censorship guys in a meeting.
Yes.
Okay, well, he's had experiences like that on set. Not the Chinese government officials or anything like that, but, where they don't want to piss off the censorship, so they cut a scene, and they're like, well, that's not going to work, because we don't want to piss the government off. It's stuff like that. Like, that's real, I mean, and the part that made him, like, crack up, it's like, well, now we know what it's like to be a Hollywood screenwriter. He lost it at that moment. He's just like, I can't. He goes, this is too accurate. And I feel like, especially if you work in the business, like, that episode really, really got you.
Yeah,
I mean,
I think people, I have to tell you, because you can see the episode. It's available online if you go online, because I think that.
Yeah, you can go anywhere.
Yeah, because I know the people at Parks, they made it available. So this is one of those things where they say, hey, we don't care. I mean, just get online, and watch it anytime you want to watch it, because they really want this. And I love their tweet. Do you remember the tweet that they did?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Well, I guys got to tell you something really funny, though, that I found out. Trey Parker, creator of South Park. Now, recently I have been binge watching South Park since this whole thing off, because, like, I had not watched South Park for about, 2 years. Yeah. And, oh, my God, I found out some amazing stuff. So Trey had a fiance named Leanne, and so she ended up cheating on Trey Parker. Big mistake. She ended up cheating on him with some manager from this place called Foley's, which is like some sportswear store or whatever. And he named. This is how petty he is, and this is the amount of pettiness I want to achieve in my lifetime. He named the Cartman's nymphomaniac slut mom after her, and he named the cow in his play Cannibal something after her. I mean, that was just great when I found that out. So basically, her name was Leanne, and so Cartman's mom, who basically, like, they make a joke at how she spreads her legs for, like, everybody, was named after his ex-fiance. So when I found that out, I was like, this is the level of pettiness I achieve. And he actually took a quote. He said a quote. He goes, yeah, I'm like a multi-millionaire, and now she's married to a manager at Foley's. Like, you go, man. Like, that is pettiness. Like, I mean, that is the pettiness I yearn to achieve in my time. Because I'm a petty person, so I was like, hands down, I love these guys. I mean, these guys are hilarious. They're funny. You go back to, like, season 1. I mean, I just started watching season 1 again, and I am just like, holy crap. I mean, it is such a funny show. And what I love about the show is, like, they literally just poke fun at everybody. Like, they don't care who you are.
Yeah.
I mean, I've been watching it so much, Tom. Someone literally told me something, and I was like, kick ass, like Cartman says. I was like, I caught myself, and I was like, holy crap, I'm speaking like Cartman from South Park now. This is not good. This is not good.
Oh, speaking of South Park, now they got a show with LeBron James.
Oh.
So I have not seen.
This is going to be good.
It should be good. I have not seen it.
It's going to be amazing. I mean, there's some great episodes. Like, one of the ones I just finished watching, actually was one of my favorites, is where Cartman gets, like, really pissed off that this kid sold him pubes, literally. And so what he does is he basically goes and he, like, he tricks him and he basically kills his parents and makes the kid eat him. He eats his parents in the chili. And I was cracking up so hard. I mean, you can't, I mean, the stuff that they write, it's just like, it doesn't get old. My point is, this show has been around since 1997. 97, guys. And it is still kicking ass. That's got to say something about it.
Yeah. Well, here's the thing. I mean, because I don't want to believe this, because the NBA, by the way, is not the only that have basically compromised on their values. Because as I say, because my problem with the NBA, because here's the thing with the NBA, is these are, you know, especially LeBron and some of these, they've spoken out on public issues in the past. And to me, the question would be is, you know, how do you know, there's this part of me that says, you know, you're willing to speak on these other issues. This is probably about as big of an issue you'll ever get to be able to speak on in your life. And you blew it. You blew it. I mean, it's like, you know, I had one person say to me, a family member say to me, he said, you know, there's a part of me that says, I understand they can speak, but man, after this, I don't want to hear from these people. I don't want to hear from these people anymore. If this is the way it's going to be, I just don't want to hear it. And I think that, you know, and that's the part that, you know, when you get into the political business or you start making this, you know, discussions and making political points, you know, this is part of the game. And when you do something like this, it kind of, I won't say undermines what you've done in the past, but certainly it weakens the other arguments you've been making, especially when you're basically saying, you know, when you're throwing other people of the NBA under the bus, only if this guy waited a week, only if this guy, you know, talked to me or whatever.
Right.
As if, why would he talk to you over this issue? He can speak for himself, and you can speak for yourself as well. So. Yeah, exactly. And that's the thing they don't allow in China, and people don't seem to really understand that. Like, you know, I'm not going to China. You know, we had plans on maybe going there, and now it's like definitely no. Like, I would never step foot there now. Not now. So, by the way, ladies and gentlemen, this is Tom Donaldson and Coco Konski of a special edition of the Donaldson Files. In about 3 minutes, we will be switching over to the Batchelor Pad in L.A. L.A. is going to be a little bit late, so I may have to start the show off, and then after that. You will, because I am going to a fashion award show. I'm very happy because my friend is going to be in it, and so I got invited, and I was like, hell yeah. I get to go to all these really cool events. So if you guys follow me on Instagram, you guys should. It is Coco Konski, Konski. So you all should just follow me there because I post, like, my life there. If you all want to see me, that's cool. No, not only that, but also Coco also has pictures of her dog, Reagan. Oh, God, I thought you were saying she takes pictures of her at the gym. Yes, I do. Yeah. I get, like, really creepy messages, actually. I mean, I don't know if any of you all get them, like, when you post, like, a bikini shot or something. And, like, clearly, like, I have a boyfriend, and I post that on my profile, you know, and they just tend to ignore that, and I just, like, tell them to F off. But, yeah, you know, why not? Who cares? It's my Instagram. But, again, if you guys want to follow me, feel free to. I'll follow you back. Just, you know, let me know that you listen to the show, and I'll be happy to follow you back. All right. Okay, I'd like to say we're about ready to say good night. Good night. And this is the Donaldson Files. We will, we want to thank everybody for joining us, and we will be right back in a few minutes. So, again, thank you very much, and we will see you very shortly.
If you want to hear another view of the latest developments in Trump's Washington, listen to the Dr. Larry Show. every Wednesday at 7 p.m. Eastern. Dr. Larry is a former businessman, entrepreneur, college president, and author who provides background and context for current events and trends in politics, education, foreign policy, and religion from a conservative perspective. Tune in and hear the other side as Dr. Larry talks with Washington insiders exclusively on blogtalkradio.com and the podcast at theBachelorPadNetwork.com.
Autumn with her serenade, melodies, the sweetest music ever played. Autumn kisses we knew are beautiful souvenirs. As I pause to recall, the leaf seems to fall like tears. Silver stars the years come and go, I'll still feel the glow that time cannot fade when I hear that lovely autumn serenade.
White House Report.
Today's White House Report is very personal. The nation lost a fighter and a friend. I lost a Baltimore friend, Congressman Elijah Cummings, dead at the age of 68, the head of Government Oversight and Reform. He was serving the people until death. The last time we saw Congressman Cummings was in September at the Congressional Black Caucus. He had been ill. He had been fighting complication issues from a heart malady that he's been dealing with for a couple of years. But in the span of that time, he still stayed as the head of government oversight and reform, taking on issues of impeachment, the impeachment inquiry of this president, Donald John Trump. Meanwhile, what we do know is that Congressman Cummings, as of last week, was on a Democratic conference call trying to serve the people. But we know that the congressman overnight succumbed to his malady stemming from a heart issue with complications. I talked to Cleveland Congresswoman Marcia Fudge this morning, who would normally text with the congressman at least once a week. She had this to say about her friend and fellow congressman.
The country has lost a great leader, a statesman, and a friend.
Once again, Cleveland Congresswoman Marcia Fudge. Elijah Cummings leaves to mourn his wife, Maya Rockeymoore, and children. He leaves the city to mourn his loss, and a nation as well. What I will say about my friend who I would text, who I knew way before Washington, who told me that it was amazing that both of us came from Baltimore and sit in these lofty positions in Washington, D.C. What I will say to my friend at this moment in time, rest in peace and power, my friend, until we see each other again. Elijah Cummings, dead at the age of 68. April Ryan, AURN News.
I am L.A. Appreciate you listening to the Batchelor News Radio Show this evening. 646-929-0130, the number to get in touch with us, and start off with some nice Will Downing, but on a more like a somber but rejoiceful of his life and career. The passing of Congressman Elijah Cummings from Maryland, someone who was under the microscope, if you will, with this president and the criticism of Baltimore. I want to bring in my first guest. He is a syndicated talk show host on XM Satellite Radio. He's also a best-selling author and a political scientist. Always good to have the doctor make a house call. He is Dr. Wilmer J Leon III. And Doc, appreciate you coming on as always. And we start off the show with the passing of Elijah Cummings, and one of those guys I didn't always agree with, but that was more of a Democratic thing, not an individual Democratic thing, in terms of what they could do and doing their due diligence. But he's a great American, and by all accounts, from everybody that I know that knew him, I should say, thought he was one of the most kindest and gentlest spirits walking this earth.
Well, I knew him. I knew him.
Right.
Not well, but I did have the opportunity to speak with him on a few occasions. And the thing that you walked away from after talking to him were the things that you walked away from after you finished speaking with him. Was A, brilliant guy, B, sincere guy, and a great human being. And to your point, even though you might not have agreed with him on particular issues or at a particular time, the one thing you could never question was the sincerity in the position that he was taking. He believed in what he did. And it may not have always been right, but he believed he was doing the right thing and doing the right thing for the right reasons. And I would submit that that's all you could really ever ask of anybody, whether it's your child, your spouse, your friend, your parent, or your elected representative. If you believe that what you're doing is right and you're doing it for the right reason, well, then we're just going to have to agree to disagree.
Right. And that's essentially what, and you can tell even Nancy Pelosi was, I mean, she could barely get her press conference out. I could tell that she was probably crying before, and she certainly was choked up during that press conference. You get a sense, though, with Doc, when these kind of iconic, if you will, or men and women that serve in the Congress and in politics, and they serve for so long, that one always looks at their record and what was their statement policy, what was their statement bill what was their statement defining moment. I think that's sort of unfair because you're still serving, but if you had to think of anything with Congressman Cummings, what would that be in that defining moment or that bill or that situation?
Well, he had a very long legislative track record, whether it was bills that he introduced or bills that he co-sponsored or /supported. But, your memory tends to default to the most recent event, to which I would say, as chairman of the House Oversight Committee, I want to say it was it wasn't Kavanaugh. It was the situation with the president and the investigation of the Oversight Committee when Cohen was before him, and the closing statement that the congressman made, in a nutshell, about being true to the Constitution. And I think we've seen that. They showed that clip. But if you reflect back to how he ran that hearing, one of a couple of things that were very, very evident. A, his command of the rules of the House and procedure. As many times as the Republicans tried to bulldoze him, he ran his committee. And he chaired his committee, and he was not going to allow those, and I got to put it this way because in a number of instances, to me, this is how it came off, those arrogant white men were not going to bully Elijah Cummings. And for as indignant and as fictitiously self-righteous as they came across, for him it was, no, fellas, not here, not today, because I'm not that guy.
Yeah, you're right. And just to follow up with the late congressman, he was criticized most recently with his open affection and friendship with Congressman Meadows, I believe, from North Carolina, if I'm not mistaken, and in those whole hearings and that whole situation where he did show he had control, but did show, hey, he's a Republican, but he's a good friend of mine. And, there are a lot of Democrats, not necessarily some of his colleagues, but Democrats that were, you're fraternizing with the enemy. How dare you? And again, in the era of lack of civility, and civics in general, Doc, as you teach. Just to be calm and to be able to get along with someone and disagree with somebody on the other side, I don't see anything wrong with that, especially if you're working genuinely, like you said, honestly, trying to get work done for the American people.
As his colleagues came to him and tried to challenge him on that point, the answer was, that's your problem, not my problem. Because he was there not to do the work for the Democratic Party, he was there to do the people's work. And as being someone who was there to do the people's work, he clearly understood that he could not devolve into the petty partisanship that American politics has devolved into. He stayed above the fray. As a very dear friend of mine, a mentor of mine would say to me, Wilmer, you got to play the game above the rim. And that's what he always did. He played the game above the rim.
Explain what you mean in that sports analogy. What do you mean by play the game above the rim?
Well, in basketball, as you know,
right.
Two things. One, when you catch a pass, particularly in the paint, you want to keep the ball above your head, especially if you're tall, because you want to maintain the advantage that your height provides you. As soon as you bring the ball down to shoulder level, waist level, or below, now you have relinquished your advantage and you put the ball in the area in which everybody can get a hold of it. And the real advantage in the game is when you're able to play the game at the rim and at the box on the backboard. That's where you really have. That's where the oxygen is thinner. That's where the air is thinner, and fewer people can go. So, my dear mentor Bernard Mustafa told me in the midst of a real crisis that I was in, where I wanted to exact revenge upon someone, and I mean very violent revenge. He said to me, Wilmer, always play the game above the rim. Be the biggest man on the court. And I've never forgotten that lesson.
Yeah, that's it's almost like the Michelle Obama, they go low, we go high type of thing. And incidentally too, Doc, as you know, the kind of racial venom attack that this man in the White House put on Cummings, and then have the nerve to say he could never be replaced and all this other foolishness that he said, that nobody really believes anything. Anybody that knows him and understands, it just speaks to how some, as genuine as he was, not just Donald Trump, but there are so many of these politicians out here. They're so phony. They are. Sometimes there's politics where you're disagreeing and you're being political and you're trying to push your agenda. And then at the end of the day, you shake hands, you go home, and that kind of thing. But then there's some personal attacks that are very real, and Trump stuff is real. And it just saddens me that Cummings didn't. Now his work is going to go on, and you can explain how they, whoever takes over his committee, how that works, the process. You know it better than I, but but the fact that he can't see this impeachment through, even if it's just the House impeaching and the Senate says, no, we're not going to do it, that he's not physically here to see that through. That's the only injustice I would say is here, although he would be in spirit.
Well, to your earlier, your initial point about 45 statement, that's fine. Because here, here's the lesson. If I could be presumptuous enough to say, anybody listening to this conversation, if they wanted to point to one of the things that you could take away from Congressman Cummings' life, understanding and try to learn from, he never allowed the racist personal attack to distract him from the duty that he understood that he was there to accomplish, the task that he was there to accomplish.
Yeah.
So when they wanted to chastise him for maintaining his friendship with a Republican, I'm not going to let you confuse me, distract me, or deter me from what I know is right. He was a man of unyielding, uncompromising principle. And he stood and he operated and he functioned on that principled base. And when that is your foundation, then you won't get distracted by the attacks and call me what you want to call me. Say what you want to say. Do what you want to do. But at the end of the day, I know what I got to do. I say that to my son all the time. Understand what you're about. And when you understand what you're about and when you understand what you're there to do, get it done. And don't allow any of the chatter, the elevator music, the background noise, don't allow that to confuse you. Handle your business.
Right.
That's how you win in the end. Whether you're there to realize and appreciate it or not, at the end of the day, he won. Donald Trump is an utter fool. And the statement that he released, for as nice as it is, everybody understands it's BS. Donald Trump, you're an utter fool. And here's something too. The final point on this. Trump's assessment of Congressman Cummings' district and the either effectiveness or lack thereof of Congressman Cummings, Trump's assessment demonstrated how little Trump actually knew. Because anybody who understands Baltimore and understands the district in Maryland that Cummings was responsible for, was represented, I want to say it was something like over 500 square miles wide. So it ran the gamut from the urban center of Baltimore to the suburbs of Columbia and Ellicott City. I mean, he and even after his district was gerrymandered.
Mm-hmm.
Even after his district was gerrymandered, if you go back and look at the percentage that he won his elections by, Dude won by 70 to 80% of the vote.
And Baltimore is a big city, Doc. This notion that Trump tries to push out there to the idiots that follow him, I'm sorry, that's what I said, is that there's a suburb of it that's not povertized, if you will. You know what I mean?
That's my
so
point.
this no
That's my
right.
point.
That's the notion that it's just some big black poor city is ridiculous.
Right.
And that's not true.
That's my point. When I talk about Columbia, Maryland, that's one of the wealthiest suburbs in the state.
Yep.
Ellicott City. There are rural areas. There were rural areas in his district. There was an urban center in his district. There were wealthy white suburbs in his district. And he still was able to be reelected year after year or term after term after term by incredible margins.
Yep.
So again, Donald Trump, Congressman Cummings won in the end because he was a man of principle, he was a man of service, and he stayed true to what he knew to be correct.
Yeah, 68 years young. I know he had the health issues, but and
right.
to your point, winning and you got to have some white vote to win like that. So let's be clear about that.
And win
he had
often.
Right. So he had a rainbow of people. I didn't expect this tragedy to happen, so I wanted to touch on that, but I do want to touch on the president before you go. Mick Mulvaney literally, I mean, I get, is that their strategy now, Doc? Just, yeah, we did it, so what? What you going to do about it? Because if that's the case, then, America could be in trouble because we know how Democrats are. Donald Trump and his team, the Grim Reaper and Mr. Magoo, the Dracula and Giuliani and all these people that work for him, they're basically saying, yeah, he did it. It was a quick pro quo. And so what? What are you going to do about it? Is that the strategy, or in the end, will that be impeachable for them?
I think the answer to your question is yes and yes. Yes, it's their strategy, but that's always their strategy, which is, yeah, and your point is, yeah, so what?
Right.
Yeah, I did it. I'm the president. What are you going to do? That's, at the end of the day, that's the strategy. I think now that what I think you really have to think, we have a tendency, because we're honest, sensible, God-fearing people, we have a tendency to operate in the context of right and wrong, of legal and illegal. Now that you're in the realm of impeachment, you're not dealing with legality. You're dealing with politics.
Right.
You're dealing with the public trust and how people perceive the public trust. So when you read the letter that his White House counsel wrote to Nancy Pelosi, for as just utterly baseless and ridiculous as that letter was, even though it was written by an attorney, it was a political document.
Right.
There's not one thing in that letter that would be defensible in court or would be defensible in a constitutional law class. But that's not the audience that it was directed to. It was a political document. So now when Mick Mulvaney comes out and says, yeah, there was quid pro quo, but he's not talking to you. He's not talking to me. He's talking to the base of Trump supporters. Individuals who will hear him. He's talking, I was going to say to Fox News, but now what we're finding out is even sometimes Fox News won't find it that foolishness.
Yeah.
So this is not right and wrong. This is not legal or illegal. This is not really even constitutional or not constitutional. This has to do with violation of the public trust. That's what impeachment is about. And they are appealing to their sycophants, their blind followers, those who are going to ride and die. Or ride or die. Ride or die, I'm sorry.
Yeah, either one, right?
Right. That's who they're talking to. Trust me, son. I'm your dad. But daddy, son, trust me. I'm your dad.
Right.
That's what this is.
Final question for you, because I know you short on time, but you look at the debate, this most recent debate at the time of this broadcast that happened, attacks on your girl, my girl, or the person that we think is in the best case in terms of the policies is Elizabeth Warren, and they went after her hard. Everybody, except with the exception, more so, Cory Booker tried to stay above the fray a little bit, but everybody had something for her, and I thought she performed awesome. I thought she was on. I mean, she handled it really good. So, what do we take from that? And what are we going to see some more people, fall by the wayside after this last debate?
Well, I think you will, because the standard for the next debate is even higher than this one. So I think your Mr. Yang, Cory may go.
What's her name from Hawaii? Gabby. I think she might go.
Tulsi. Tulsi Gabbard. Unfortunate. Yeah, and for me that's unfortunate, because she's the only one that's seriously talking about the war machine, the defense budget, and the debilitating, devastating impact that war mentality is having on the country. And no matter what Bakari Sellers, that ignorant fool from CNN, says about her being a Russian agent, he's really testing my listening to my pastor on this one. I'm doing everything I can not to call him what I really want to call him. I'll just leave it at that. He was so beyond the pale that even Camerata, the woman on CNN, said, "What?"
Yeah.
He said, "What?" And April Ryan said, "What? Wait a minute." Allison Camerata.
Right.
Yeah. So I mean, he just went so far out there with that Russian foolishness. They need to put him off. They need to seriously put him off of CNN, because that was just nothing but ignorant and irresponsible. With that having been said, now I've wasted 2 minutes on Bakari Sellers that I never should have. But anyway, attacking Elizabeth Warren is what they're going to do. To me, here's the interesting thing to watch. Tomorrow, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, Ilhan Omar, and Rashida Tlaib 3/4 of the squad are coming out in support of Bernie.
Right.
To me, it'll be very interesting to see if that has an impact on his poll numbers. And if so, to what degree does that impact his poll numbers? Because if their endorsement, there are those who say I'm wrong here, but I believe if their endorsement results in a substantial bump in his numbers, you, in my opinion, will be witnessing a real problem within the Democratic Party.
Right.
Because that will demonstrate that the progressive element of the party is more engaged than the leadership of the party wants to recognize and appreciate. And no matter how hard they try to discount, disrespect, and ignore Bernie Sanders, they won't be able to.
Yep. And I don't think Biden's going to be there at the end of the day anyway. I just don't think he looks I'm not trying to be funny. He looks old. He got old really. He got old really fast. Like, he just looks really dusty old. And so I'm with you. Yeah, I don't see him at the end. I think it's going to come down to Mayor Pete, Elizabeth Warren. I mean, it's a long ways to go, and Bernie.
Let me say this about. I may have said this before on the show, and this is not a value judgment, and this is not a personal opinion. Well, this is a personal opinion, but this is not a value judgment on his sexual preference.
Right. You're not saying this because he's gay or anything. Right. Okay.
No. I'm saying this because he's gay, but this is not a value judgment of the fact that he's gay.
Right. That's what I meant.
I don't believe that America is ready, particularly Black America, is ready for a gay president. And more important than that, I don't believe that America, particularly Black America, and you got to have Black America to win as a Democrat, I don't believe that Black America is ready for a gay president who is married, because the optics of the first couple dancing at the inaugural ball, there are too many people in the country that cannot stomach the thought of two men dancing in tuxedos on a ballroom floor.
Yeah.
As narrow-minded as that may be, as homophobic as that may be, as you can use whatever other descriptive you want to use, I don't think America is there. Let alone after he accepts the oath of office, I don't think America is ready for the hug and the kiss of I don't think America is there.
You're right.
Now, prove me wrong, America. Show me that you're more progressive than your history tells me you are. Tell me you're more progressive than your hatred and your homophobia and your racism and your xenophobia. Tell me you're bigger than that. I don't think America is.
I agree. I think he would. I thought just he would go into next year, but we'll see. I think it really is going to come down to Bernie and Elizabeth Warren at the end of the day. Klobuchar had a decent night.
When they talk about Elizabeth Warren, what do they say? We don't think she's electable. Oh,
right.
And Buttigieg is?
Right.
I think not.
That's an excellent point, Doc. As always, it's an excellent point. That, this country's not ready to see him kiss his husband, his partner. After the inauguration, that they don't want that. Guns and guns and pickup trucks and some Joe Billy Bob in Alabama. They ain't trying to hear that. He ain't trying to see it.
No,
he ain't trying to hear it. So
neither is Leroy Washington.
That's true. Because we are. You're right. In the pulpit, you are exactly right. We're not. You're exactly right. Ain't trying to hear it.
As they say, God made Adam and Eve, not Adam and Steve.
Adam and Steve, yeah. Doc, before you go, let people know about your book, how they can get it, and of course, your radio show, sir.
The book, Politics and Other Perspectives. You can get that at wilmerleon.com. Just go to wilmerleon.com, and you'll get an autographed copy. If you order it that way, you can pay through PayPal. The show was Inside the Issues on Sirius XM 126 Urban View is where you go there. Saturdays from 11 to 2 Eastern. And got a real good show for you this Saturday. We've got longtime politician and analyst Virtual Morel. We'll be talking about Congressman Cummings. He'll be talking about the debate. I've got Mark Charles coming on to talk about his book, Unsettling Truths, the ongoing dehumanizing legacy of the doctrine of discovery. And I've got Angie Maxwell coming on to talk about the book, The Long Southern Strategy, How Chasing White Voters in the South Changed American Politics.
Wow. Definitely some thought-provocative guests and conversation up there. Doc, as always, I appreciate your dialogue and your info and, of course, your house call.
Hey, man. Anytime. Appreciate it.
Thank you, sir.
You got it. Take care.
All right. Dr. Wilmer J. Leon III, right here on the Batchelor News Radio Show.
Very fine, yeah. So fine, just why he's fine, yeah. Real cute like a reserva. So smooth like a power. I don't mind, no, I don't mind, yeah. If he got the furry eyes, yeah. He protects me like 2K. He's my baby, oh, he's my baby.
back, of course, to the Batchelor News Radio Show. L.A. Batchelor with you, of course. 646-929-0130, the number to get in touch with us. Press 1 to get on the line. We'll go back to the phones and bring in my next guest from Anastos Media. He is also the voice of UMass Lowell basketball. He's Nick Anastos. And, Nick, always a pleasure, sir.
How you doing, L.A.?
Good, man. So I want to touch on baseball before we do our NFL recap preview type thing. Rain out with the Yankees in Game 4. This thing, baseball's so funny, especially when you have, talented teams that it can go either way. Yankees take Game 1. They had a chance at Game 2. They struggled against Houston pitching in the Game 3, and here they're down 2-1. There was a rain out, of course. And then on the other side, the last time we talked, the Nationals and the Cardinals were just getting started, and the Nationals just stormed through them. So talk about the Nationals and how they beat up on the Cardinals, and what do you see so far in this Yankee-Astros series?
Well, we'll start with the Nats. I think they're a team on a mission, for sure. I think a lot of guys in that locker room took a look at what transpired last winter, with the off season and all the buzz and all the questions surrounding Bryce Harper, and may have felt it a little slighted, everybody kind of writ them off at the beginning of the year, no Harper, no chance, and that seemingly has served as motivation for those guys to really knuckle down. I felt like they did have the advantage in the starting rotation, obviously with Strasburg and Scherzer, and those guys are both, I think, at this point, LA, at this point in their career, obviously ready to take that next step and clearly are ready for prime time. So, we can speak. Both teams certainly had momentum going into that series. We talked about St. Louis and that blowout win, but obviously they weren't quite able to, tap into whatever that was that got them over Atlanta. And Washington, obviously, coming off a Game 5 win on the road in L.A. where no one gave them a chance, obviously served as motivation as well and momentum. So I just feel like Washington, was a better team overall. More of a team on a mission, not just happy to be there and, on the hunt to prove a lot of people wrong. And as far as the Yankees go, I think Houston was a little bit, I don't know if they're worn out or not, but we talked about how the Yankees had really kind of hit the ground running in their series against Minnesota, and seemingly that carried over into Game 1. But again, in Game 2, now here we are mid-October, postseason's fully underway, and it always comes down to pitching, as you and I have talked about, over the years. So I felt like Houston had a little bit of an edge, not only with the rotation, but with the bullpen, and seemingly those strengths have come to fruition in Games 2 and 3 for the Astros.
I know Tanaka's gone. You think Houston pulls it out because they're up 2-1, or how do you see this series going? Who will the Nationals be playing?
Well, Tanaka has to bring his A game. That's needless to say, but if he can give them 5 of 2-run ball, I think the Yankees have a chance being at home. But right now, it certainly seems like it's Houston's series to lose.
Yeah, there's no shame in they they've won a World Series. They've been in that position. I really thought they blew it against Boston the year after, but it is what it is. So we'll see what happens. Let's switch gears to the NFL, do our a recap. I look at these games, man, and, we didn't say much of Kansas City in the blueprint when they lost to the Colts. And Houston's a very good football team. Let's make no mistake about that. But they just seem very, some kryptonite is in Superman and that team at this point. And quite honestly, full disclosure, I'm not a big fan of their coach, even when he was in Philly. But what's wrong with Kansas City right now? Outside of, I understand he's got the kid's got the injury there, the ankle injury, but He's still got to play, and he still can throw the ball 1,000 yards down the field, and they still got all these weapons. They get Tyreek Hill back, and they still lose. What's wrong with Kansas City?
I think you touched on it a little bit with the injuries. They haven't really been at full speed all year. I mean, they lost Tyreek Hill. He came back, obviously, but then they lose Sammy Watkins. There's 2 starters up front that are injured. So, I think they've been bitten a little harder by the injury bug than other teams. That being said, their defense still is not near where it needs to be, right? I mean, we've talked about that they've improved. They made some acquisitions in the offseason to bring in some veterans, and that has helped. But they can't really lean on them, it seems like, when the games are tight in the fourth quarter. They're still missing that Super Bowl speed, I think, so to speak, on the defensive side of the ball. So you couple that with a couple injuries, another year of tape on Patrick Mahomes. I mean, he's obviously still been explosive and still been good, but he's been knocked around a little bit because of the injuries up front. So, we'll see. I still think that division is theirs to take. And, they're certainly obviously still a playoff team and a contender. But we'll see moving forward. I think that they do need to get healthy sooner rather than later.
What about the situation? Demaryius Thomas comes out, of course, obviously played most of his career in Denver. He comes to the Patriots. They release him. They bring him back. They sign him. Then they trade him, assuming they have Antonio Brown. That is a disaster. So they send him to the Jets, and he's talking how, Bill Belichick and Patriots disrespectful. They didn't do it a professional way in the trade and all of that. What do you make of that, and what do you make of the Patriots? Again, I think I asked you this last week, and I ask you again. Brady doesn't look like Brady, and you said, it could be age, the offensive line. They don't have receivers, man. They're banged up, the wide receivers. So they don't have Thomas. What do you make of his comments and their receiving situation moving forward?
I think they'll be fine, honestly. Brady's done a lot more with a lot less in terms of perimeter weapons. And, Edelman has been playing hurt. Gordon has been nicked up even before the knee injury last week. They have another kid that made a splash in camp that has come in 3 receiver sets, and Dorsett as well has given them depth and has played pretty well. But the bottom line is, the nucleus is the same. They're going to run and they're going to dink and dunk, and they don't really need to go downfield because they haven't had to rely on Brady's arm or lack thereof on deep shots for a long time. So, again, I think the Patriots' main concern is up front in protecting Brady and being more consistent with the ground game behind Sony Michel. And again, can they move the ball on third down? Edelman is tough as nails. He's probably going to play hurt the whole year. Gordon's going to get a week and a half to rest before Monday night, so he may be back in. I think they're going to be just fine with or without Antonio Brown or anyone else on the outside with the group of guys they have.
Talking with Nick Anastos here on the Nick. A couple of things. I know Reggie's got some questions. I got something off the email, and I won't hold you all long, but 2 quick ones, and they involve so-called, definitely with Ramsey, shutdown. Of course, Patrick Peterson comes back to the Cardinals. Is he going to be traded? I know, the Cardinals are not going anywhere anywhere fast. He's certainly a young, viable guy who can help the team, Pittsburgh. And then, Ramsey goes to the Rams. That's a huge move for them. I mean, I know they got their issues on their offensive line and all of that, but that you solidify your defense, you can have some issues on the offense. Just ask the Patriots. Their defense is carrying them right now. You bring in a Ramsey with the way that the defense can play, and you got another corner that can shut them down. I think that's a big move, and I think that Ramsey has a chip on his shoulder that he wants to prove that he's going to be as dominant as possible. Your thoughts on both of those guys?
Yeah, well, obviously Ramsey is a premier talent. It's the off-field stuff that teams have to worry about, the so-called baggage, right? And obviously the paycheck is a big deal too. So wherever he goes, whether it's this year, whether it's 3-4 years down the road, whether it's 5-10 years down the road, I still think he's that good to play into his 30s, number one, if he stays healthy. And two, he's going to demand not just one contract over the course of his career, but two. So that combined with, I don't know if baggage is fair or not. He certainly has taken took a hard stance with Coughlin and Marone and the rest of that Jaguar front office, and it was just time to part ways. But he is a premier talent. He's obviously going to help them, and now the question becomes what happens in this coming off season with him is more of a storyline to watch.
And Patrick Peterson?
Peterson, same deal. Same deal, I think. A little older, obviously. Probably doesn't have as long of a shelf life, but I would say those are probably two of the top 5 corners in the game, right?
Right.
So, you got to cash in while you can. The train only comes around once, so to speak. Nobody knows if the next day the guy could go out and break his leg or, suffer a horrific injury. So you have to act now, and obviously they're going to make moves that are in their best interest. And this is the day that we live in, where the players certainly at that position at least, where there's so few guys that are considered shutdown corners.
Right.
They can demand what they want, and ultimately they're going to get what they want. It's usually the case more often than not.
Yeah, I think they're two of the premier. Like you said, I agree with you. Two of the top. Some people say top 3. Two of the top 3. Well, Peterson coming off suspension, but still, a little older, but definitely probably a little more physical than as athletic as Ramsey is. Talking with Nick Anastos here on the pad. 646-929-0130, the number to get in touch with us. Press 1 to get on the line. Won't hold Nick long. I want to go to Reggie Howell. Good evening to you, sir, my friend. And I know you got questions for Nick.
Gentlemen, how you doing? Nick, how you doing, my friend?
Good to hear from you, Reggie. How are you?
All right. I want to go back to the press conference after the game where they asked the general, the GOAT, Tom Brady, about his receivers. And you couldn't overlook at his face with the joy in his eyes, saying that facetiously. What's your thought, Nick, about this team and the injuries that the Golden One is dealing with?
I think I touched on it a little bit earlier. Again, this offense has been able to produce one way or the other, no matter what the personnel has been, with Brady under center. And again, if we're talking weapons, we're talking receiving core, that's really secondary to what's going on up front. That's secondary to the run game, and that's secondary to the pass-catching backs that they have, i.e. James White, i.e. Rex Burkhead when he's healthy. So I would argue that the least important position on the offensive side of the football, at least when you're dealing with New England, is the wide receiver. So yes, if something were to happen, and Edelman were to miss a significant amount of time, i.e. like the rest of the year, that I think would be a little bit problematic. But if they're healthy enough to play on Sundays, they're out there. They don't need a whole lot of preparation during the week to be on the same page with Brady. And again, I still think that run game and the dink and dunk passing game are their top 2 options offensively anyway.
That's
Reggie,
fine. I know time is short. Go ahead. No, go ahead, Nick. I know your time is short. Go ahead. Appreciate it.
No. Go ahead. You had another question. Go ahead.
Yeah. Oh, okay, Nick. LeBron James, would you give him some advice? Sometimes you don't have to comment on everything. I know you're the king, but sometimes you got to let it go. What do you think, Nick?
Yeah, I think he would have obviously been better served to keep quiet. I mean, no doubt. LA and I touched on this a little bit last week, and I'll say this again. At some point, you've got to pick whether doing the right thing outweighs upsetting the people who are paying your salary. And in this case, it's Nike and China. So, one middle ground would be to say nothing, right? I mean, at least if he stayed nothing, his brand wouldn't have taken a hit this week, and I think it did, for sure. Because he was the one who was uneducated about the situation. He was the one who sparked a lot of not initial animosity around the subject, but he certainly poured more fuel on the fire. The NBA was hoping to put this thing to bed last weekend, and now it's right back in the forefront. So, he's got to pick his spots. He's got to make decisions based on how he feels, but he's got to be a little bit more brand savvy for his sake, if that's something that he does value moving forward.
Yeah, I was surprised that he came out the way he did, and came out and he took some hits on Twitter. So, not to say that, let me be clear, I'm not saying that Twitter is the be-all, end-all, but he did take some negative hits.
Took a hit everywhere, L.A.
Yeah,
he took a hit everywhere.
Right.
So, he did not do himself any favors by commenting on the situation one way or the other.
Right. And sometimes, like you said, you got to kind of stay out of the fray. I always tell people in my personal life, don't ask me for my opinion. I mean, I won't give my opinion unless you ask for it. So he might need to kind of do that in certain cases when it comes to certain things, and let Adam Silver handle all of that. A few games before you get out of here, our NFL preview. Look, we talked about the 49ers, the three of us. I talked about the 49ers, and, hey, I mean, the Rams got issues, Nick, but, that defense is really good. And they protect that offense. That offense struggled to convert on third downs in certain situations. That defense is really good. They're at Washington. I don't expect any hiccups there. Do you? No. I think they'd probably stomp them out. Are you surprised, though, the way they're, again? Yeah, I am. I am surprised on how good they are. I'm not surprised that they're good. I thought they'd be in the playoff mix, but I didn't think they'd be this good. That front seven, as you said, defensively is lights out. Their secondary has made leaps and bounds in terms of progression over the last 2-3 years. They've drafted well. And on offense, they are steamrolling people because they're healthy up front, and they have three backs that can get it done, or at least two. So, you throw in a decent game manager who knows how to win in Jimmy G. I think his sample size is big enough. What is he, 11-2 as a starter? Something like that? Yeah, something like that. Yeah. Right. Yeah. So, he comes from a culture of winning. Obviously, Shanahan had success in Atlanta before he came to San Francisco, and now I think 2-3 years into it, he's put his blueprint on it. His fingerprints are all over that team right now. He's got a large input on offense, for sure. So that team is good, and they've got the ingredients to go into December and January, right, which is a strong run game and a strong defense. And they have both right now. Throw in, again, not a superstar quarterback, but certainly a serviceable game manager that knows how to win. And they are, for sure, an elite contender right now in the NFC. Hey, John just emailed me and said, ask Nick why Washington couldn't get a coach when they had three of them in their stable. And he says Green Bay, San Francisco, and the Rams. They were all in Washington, by the way. Right. So why they can't have a coach in Washington at this point is what was the question. Well, they're a day late and a dollar short. They should have canned Gruden at the end of last year, and that would have solved it. They would have taken one of those three guys in-house. Probably would have had their pick of the litter, or at least would have been competitive for all three, and you probably land one. Instead, they commit to Gruden for another year, not a wholehearted commitment either, obviously. And figured, okay, well, let's see what happens, blah, blah, blah. Let's give him one more year. And obviously it didn't work.
So, and we talked again a little bit last week about Washington. They're not a very good organization, is what it comes down to. And say what you want about Daniel Snyder, but they don't usually draft well. They don't usually sign good free agents or good deals. I think they overspent on Norman. And this doesn't go back to – this goes back a long time. This goes back a long time. They have not been, where I think their fan base would like to see them, and that's on the short list of competitors in the NFC. I mean, those fans now I think are lucky for a sixth seed, and an occasional playoff appearance every 4 or 5 years. And that's just not the sign. That's just not the track record of a good organization. And this, this latest fumble on the coaching front is the latest example.
Yeah, Callahan, we know his track record, but, they haven't won since the 90s. So,
Right. The early
90s. Early 90s, right. Houston and Indiana, these are two, Indianapolis, these are two teams that have, Houston that, people expected to be good. Indianapolis overperforming, if you will. The Colts with a big, statement win against Kansas City a couple of weeks ago. Houston winning at Kansas City, so both teams beating them. Who wins this game in your thoughts?
Ooh, that's a good question. I think Houston right now has figured it out up front. Obviously last year their Achilles heel was that offensive line. It was protecting Watson. I think he was sacked about 60 times or something. And it looked like deja vu all over again, to quote Yogi Berra, for the first 4 weeks, with him on his back more often than not. But it seems like over the last couple of games, they've been able to protect him. Carlos Hyde has had a resurrection. He looked like he was headed for no man's land after jumping 3 or 4 teams last summer. But he's found his stride there. I think Duke Johnson is in the role he needs to be. And that's not as a 3-down back, but a 3rd-down back. And he's very good at that. So he's more of a complementary piece now with Hyde in place that has solidified the run game, at least over the last couple of weeks. So they protected Watson better. Their defense, we knew, was probably always above average. And I still think that's probably where they are. And I think they've got enough to bring Indianapolis back down to earth a little bit again this week.
In our 2-minute warning, NFL preview, 60 seconds, Nick. So I'll give you 4 games: Oakland, Green Bay, Baltimore, Seattle, big game; New Orleans, Chicago, Philly, Dallas, and New England Jets. Any upset there?
I don't think so. I think the Packers are just too good for the Raiders. Same thing with New England and New York. That's a rematch, obviously. Darnold didn't play in the first game. That may give them a little hope, but it's in New York as well. But I think the Patriots are probably too much, especially with 10 days to get ready. I think Seattle probably holds serve at home. That's a long trip, obviously.
I hope so.
I hope so. You would think so, but right, they've been up and down. And again, I'd like to see New Orleans get a win outside. Now it's getting a little colder. They're not indoors. Chicago's defense is for real, as we talked about. I think they're top 5 league-wide. So it wouldn't surprise me if the Bears won there. And what was the final game?
Philly, Dallas. I think they both go to a bye, and they're both 3-3. So this is a really big game for both of them.
Right. I'm not quite sure what's wrong with Philly.
I can't either.
I'm not quite sure. I need another week to diagnose it. I like Dallas in this game, by the way. I just think they're more in sync right now than Philly is. Philly's secondary, I would say, has been surprisingly disappointing. If I were to pin something for their troubles, it's that secondary, and I think Dak can exploit them. I like Dallas in the game.
Yeah, I don't know what Philly's deal is. They're like the Steelers of a few years ago, and they can rush the quarterback, but if you block that front 7, you can throw the ball all over the place. And I think that's the problem with Philly right now. But we will see. Nick, as always, sir, I appreciate you coming on. Thank you for your time, sir.
Thank you, LA. We'll talk to you next week.
Absolutely. Appreciate you. Nick Anastos, of course. We're going to take a quick break, come back, and get Mike Patton, of course, on and talk some college football. I want to get his thoughts on, we did a text back and forth on Georgia. And I'm not a Kirby Smart guy, and I know we disagree on that, but Georgia, to me, they're still in the hunt because of the fact that they can win out and win the SEC championship. But I'm not sold on Georgia. I don't think they get it. So Reggie and I will talk with Mike Patton, the general, in about a minute and 45 seconds on
the White House Report.
Today's White House Report is very personal. The nation lost a fighter and a friend. I lost a Baltimore friend, Congressman Elijah Cummings, dead at the age of 68, the head of Government Oversight and Reform. He was serving the people until death. The last time we saw Congressman Cummings was in September at the Congressional Black Caucus. He had been ill. He had been fighting complication issues from a heart malady that he's been dealing with for a couple of years. But in the span of that time, he still stayed as the head of Government Oversight and Reform, taking on issues of impeachment, the impeachment inquiry of this president, Donald John Trump. Meanwhile, what we do know is that Congressman Cummings, as of last week, was on a Democratic conference call trying to serve the people. But we know that the congressman overnight succumbed to his malady stemming from a heart issue with complications. I talked to Cleveland Congresswoman Marcia Fudge this morning, who would normally text with the congressman at least once a week. She had this to say about her friend and fellow congressman.
The country has lost a great leader, a statesman, and a friend.
Once again, Cleveland Congresswoman Marcia Fudge. Elijah Cummings leaves to mourn his wife, Maya Rocky Moore, and children. He leaves a city to mourn his loss and a nation as well. What I will say about my friend who I would text, who I knew way before Washington, who told me that it was amazing that both of us came from Baltimore and sit in these lofty positions in Washington, D.C. What I will say to my friend at this moment in time, rest in peace and power, my friend, until we see each other again. Elijah Cummings, dead at the age of 68. April Ryan, AURN News.
And we mourn and celebrate the life of Elijah Cummings, someone who gave his life in terms of politics and serving his country and believed and was convicted with that, whether you agree with him or not. Before I go to Mike Patton, Reggie, real quick, you know, you're in Virginia, but, you know, Cummings there in Maryland. A lot of times people think about signature bills and statements and things of that nature. But, I mean, come on, man. This guy served. And with the president calling his city and his district rat-infested and roach-infested and everything else, this man stayed above the fray. And he was a career leader, not politician. He's a career leader. Yeah. Like, I didn't always agree with him and the Democrats, but I think that he really cared about what he did, and he believed in what he did, and I think that's the most important thing.
But one thing about, I can't believe I'm saying this, the ancestor of Elijah Cummings still has resonated with me when he's 68 years young. God bless the ancestor.
That's right. Yes, sir.
He, at an early age, parents were told that he was special, that he was slow. And he and a friend of his got together and said, we're going to get out of this class. And one thing about the ancestor, Representative Cummings, that he didn't take those backroom deals. He could have built his district up, but he wasn't going to be corrupt and take funding money in order to pursue special deals for his community. Not that he didn't, but he was just trying to be, and to his fault, he was a team player. You know, he tried to do everything he could to help the Democrat Party to his detriment, you know. And again, we're not throwing no stones. We're just talking intellectually honest about it. You know, he was a church-going preacher. You know, he was dressed to the nine, and he tried to do the best he could. So rest in peace, ancestor Elijah Cummings. God bless you.
Yes, sir. And just so, as we go to Mike up, just so the audience knows, Baltimore's a big county. Like it's not just Baltimore. And so for this current occupier of the White House to make it seem like his constituents were, poor and roach infested and rat infested is not. He had Columbia and all these other different areas of that part of the state of Maryland. And so Baltimore is not what folks listen out there. Baltimore is not what the county in that area is not what that guy in the White House made it out to be. It's not like that. And matter of fact, to be honest with you guys, you got to have some white folks vote for you to win after every time, term after term after term. You got to ain't enough black folks to be winning in the suburbs of Columbia or Silver Springs or wherever in Maryland. Come on now, I know the area, so let's be real about that. That's not even the case. And rest in peace to him. Continue to celebrate this, as Reddy says, 68 years young. 68. My sister's 60, so 68 years young is not old at all. So God bless him and his family. Want to go to Mike Patton, of course. Always good to have him on. Appreciate you, sir. Hope all is well and you traveling. I know you are, but thanks for coming on, sir.
Yes, sir. Thanks for having me. And man, I don't wish bad traffic on anybody. And Mr. Cummins, wow, much respect and rest in paradise. And definitely, you will always be remembered for all the great and wonderful work you did. Whether we agreed or disagreed, you will always be remembered.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Amen to that. Mike, talk about a prayer for South Carolina. Speaking of those terms, look, you and I, I get it with you, with Georgia and their coach. I just feel like, Mike, we've been seeing this thing coming on for a while. We saw it last year, and they didn't win. We saw it with slow starts. They should have, I think, in my opinion, they should have beat Notre Dame by 4 touchdowns. I just think they should have beat Notre Dame. I'm talking about Georgia, Pat Nation. They should have beat Georgia by 4 touchdowns. Notre Dame by 4 touchdowns. They didn't happen. It came down to whatever. I just don't think that he puts them in the best positions in terms of him as a coach, which means that he can veto an offensive play, a defensive play, or whatever the case may be, a fake punt or whatever. I don't think he puts them in the best positions to win. They are loaded with talent. They should not be struggling with Tennessee, and they shouldn't be losing to South Carolina. Now, they got the opportunity. They can win out, and boom, they're right there in the series and have a chance to play for a national championship. But I don't see it because I don't think that he's one of those coaches to me, Mike, that he coaches not to lose instead of coaching to win. And there's a difference there, in my opinion.
I would say this. I can't necessarily agree in all situations that he coaches to win. Coaches to lose, not to lose. But, in some instances, he does make some crazy decisions because he actually went for it. I can't remember where he went for it, but it was a bad decision when he was playing to win. I was just playing crazy at that point. But
right.
As far as this team, I would say his biggest failure with this team, to be honest, is they just don't seem into it. They seem like they're the cool kids in school. That's where I think his biggest failure is to me. I don't think he's not putting them in positions to win or play well. It's just I think they're starting to buy the hype. And he hasn't figured out.
But Mike, isn't it his job to keep that? But his job is to give them teachable moments. Okay, look, we only won by 14 points. We should have slammed. So you on film and you working their butt off in practice because you need a teachable moment. I don't think he gives them teachable moments. I think they just don't. They don't care. They just think they show up and they just win, and that's a reflection of the coach rather than the players. The coach has to get them engaged, and he's not doing that.
Well, you also got to remember, even though he's a very experienced assistant, he's still young as a head coach. So he's still trying to figure himself out while he's figuring out coaching himself.
True.
So that's where, in that instance, I'm like, okay, I get it, but still, it is pretty bad. But, I will say that, every Georgia fan right now would rather be in this position than they were with than the position they were in with Mark Richt towards the end of his tenure. So, they definitely wouldn't take that back. So I would say that, well, let's see if he works it out. And, if it goes into next season this way, or if it continues throughout the end of the season this way, then there's a problem. There needs to be either some staff adjustments, or he needs to make an adjustment as a coach. So
what happens if they don't? What happens if they don't? If they continue to falter down the stretch? Is he there? Should he be there? Does he deserve to be there?
He'll be there. There's not even a question if he'll be there. But I think what he's going to do is he's going to maybe visit a few people off the Belichick tree during the off season. If it doesn't figure out anyways, because you got to also remember that Saban is a part of the Belichick coaching tree. So that is that's he's always going to have somebody to lean on that's going to be able to help him in terms of maybe figuring out what he needs to do or what he needs to change up. So I can definitely see him doing that if he can't figure out things, or as a head coach, because he like I said, he's still young as a head coach. Not necessarily a young guy, but he's just young as a head coach.
Talking with Mike Patton here on the show, and Mike, you and I also talked about Clemson, and of course they annihilated my Florida State team. That prayer didn't go answered, but it is what it is. But when you look at this Clemson team, I think the quarterback has kind of held them back. They're loaded in every skill position, defensive line, the wide receiver, everything. But he has struggled. As a matter of fact, and I don't believe in. I think the whole Heisman thing is sort of it's like the prettiest girl at the ball type thing. But at the same time, he has struggled in reads, or maybe programs are seeing enough film to figure him out. But what did you take from Clemson and this quarterback at this point moving forward? Because they're sort of like Georgia. Like they really haven't excited anybody. There's no browning points, they really haven't done a lot. They barely beat North Carolina, should have lost. So what do you see at this Clemson team and this quarterback?
The Clemson team kind of reminds me of the Georgia team. It seems like they're not enthused to come out every single week.
Right.
Maybe the Dabo Swinney charm, I guess, he has there is kind of wearing off a little bit, and he's got to find another way to motivate his team. So that's something that surprised me a little bit about that team this year, and something that he's got to get figured out. Maybe he figured it out against Florida State, maybe not. We'll see. But as far as the quarterback, Trevor Lawrence, I would say that he hadn't necessarily been the most exciting guy to watch this year. Of course, he's had his moments, and then they talked about it as his shoulder and maybe it being bruised or anything like that. But the fact is that people have more tape on him this year, and when somebody has more tape on you, that's when you find out if you're really a player or if you're a guy that just sprang on the scene. Same thing with the NFL. When you come in and you make things happen, and then people get tape on you, then you figure out if you're for real or not. So that's what I'm thinking, that Trevor Lawrence is in that aspect of his career now, and we'll see if he's able to break out of it, or if he's able to, or if he's going to continue being, a solid quarterback, but not necessarily the star that everyone made him out to be.
Right. And my son, if you ask my son, guys, he looks like the kid from Remember the Titans, the quarterback there.
Sunshine.
Sunshine. You ask my son, it's like, that's Sunshine. I'm like, yeah, he does look like Sunshine. So I'll go with Mike Patton here on the Batchelor News Radio Show. Mike, before I go to Reggie, let me ask you about Oklahoma. And see, Oklahoma is that program, Mike, that they're always in the mix. They're always in the top, say, 10 or 15. They're always kind of good. You know, they score a lot of points, especially in the Big 12. So Big 12, everybody scores a lot. Of Baylor, West Virginia, everybody scores points. So, but that was a nice, impressive win at Texas. And gauge Oklahoma at this point, because a lot of the quote unquote, and I take your word more than any of these quote unquote experts, feel like this is their year, that they'll go deeper in the playoffs and they may have a shot. What assess them at this point?
Well, I would say this about Oklahoma. Offense has never been their issue. Their issue has always been defense. This year, it seems like Murray and the boys defensively have decided they want to step up and they want to make some things happen. So as long as that defense is stepping up and doing things and making things happen, then they'll definitely have a chance. And just looking at them this year and watching them play a few different times, they definitely have a great chance of making it to the college playoff this year. And I mean, if they get in that aspect of it, of college football, then potentially you could see them playing Alabama or Clemson or whoever else, or LSU, whoever else makes it. So
and
I mean, honestly,
that's based on a process. Is that based on that's based on a process elimination, or based on the fact that they're that good? In other words, 1 against 4, 2 against 3. They just kind of find their way in based on the elimination games, teams beating each other, and they just kind of slide in.
No, I actually think that they just win and get it done. To be honest, I'm actually looking at Jalen Hurts, and he looks like a different quarterback playing for Oklahoma. He looks like an actual NFL-style quarterback because he's hitting passes. And he's made a few passes that'll make you shake your head, like any college quarterback would do. But just looking at his overall play, he just looks like a better quarterback, to me. He just does. And and with the weapons that they have, I could definitely see them making it to the college football playoff and not really needing any help to make it there. I honestly, with the way things line up, I'm kind of in my mind wishing they would play Alabama. That would be quite interesting.
I guess the only thing I would say with Oklahoma, before I go to Reggie, is that the fact is that the Big 12 is so offensive, like everybody's scoring points. So I don't know how good their defense is until they get outside of the Big 12. They get outside of there, then we could see how good they will be. But, everybody, West Virginia, everybody seems to be able to score points in that conference. So it'll be interesting to see. Alabama's a banged-up team, as we've talked about. We'll get to that later, but it'll be interesting to see what Oklahoma is doing. We'll talk with Mike Patton here on the Batchelor News Radio Show, 646-929-0130. A couple of minutes before you lose the live feed, hit us up on Facebook at Patton Nation, Patton Nation 2 at Twitter. Want to go to my good friend, longtime friend and colleague, Reggie Howell. Go ahead, Reg.
Gentlemen, hey, good evening, General. How you doing, sir?
Doing just fine. How you doing? Sitting there watching Deshaun Jackson college football highlights.
All right, now. Greatness of the past. But, General, got to throw a little NBA. They show you how a certain coach at Houston, I'm not going to mention his name, for the Rockets, would never win a championship. How in the ham sandwich do you have your star player throw up 40 in the meanest preseason game? And already the 3 stages of a man just come following real close. From infant, you're on your knees because you're a baby. Then you stand upright because you're a man. Then you had to go to your elders. You look at Russell Westbrook. He was the man when James Harden was at Oklahoma. Now look at the roles are reversed. James Harden's the man, and Westbrook standing like, "Where's my ball? I don't have a ball." Tell me, after what you saw, you know where I'm going, Mike. After what you saw, how in the Hampton are they going to exist in the regular season and a follow-up, if I may?
Well, yeah, definitely. But I can see them existing. The difference between all the other pairings with Russell Westbrook and James Harden is because that Russell Westbrook and James Harden actually grew up in the same area, same part of town, and they actually have known each other since they were kids. So the bond there is a lot stronger than any other bond that they probably had with any other players in the NBA. So I think through that bond alone, they're going to be able to figure things out and be able to get things going. Plus another thing that they're probably not showing right now, pushing the tempo. With Russell Westbrook, he has the type of speed that a certain point guard in Phoenix had for Mike D'Antoni. Hence, push more the tempo, gets more easy buckets. He gets his buckets. Harden gets his buckets in the half court. Everybody wins.
Mm-hmm. Now, when it comes to King James and his comment, to me, do you think his team should have got with him and say, you know, from the future, you don't have to comment on everything? Sometimes you just say no comment and keep it going.
Yeah, but you know that's never been LeBron James' style, especially since he since he went to Miami and came back to Cleveland. That's not been his style. So I kind of expected a comment. I was kind of shocked that it took so long for him to comment or say anything, to be honest. But yeah, he definitely. I'm just like, you know, not everybody's gonna be on every time. And this is one of those moments where he wasn't necessarily on. So I did read one of his tweets, though, where he did talk about how this came out at a time where the Rockets and the Lakers were both going to China, and how essentially Morey's comments could have put them in some serious danger. I did read those tweets, but, you know, as far as the comments, you know, not everybody's on every time. I'm just like, wow, you know. I guess he swung and missed. It happens. He's human. We have checked. We have checked, and he is human.
Yeah, and speaking of human, your coach down in Tennessee kind of make a quarterback change. Speaking of human, what took so long?
Well, I would say this: changing the quarterback is not going to make that offense any better. Mariota is not necessarily horrible. The thing is, you got a quarterback that's been hit so much that he's got David Carr syndrome.
He's
and, you know, I don't know who David Carr. If you don't know who David Carr is, David Carr was the first overall pick for the Houston Texans, and he got hit so much.
He got Drew Bledsoe. Drew Bledsoe syndrome. Well, go ahead. Happy feet.
Yeah.
But, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. He started throwing the football, fading away, and all those type of things. But, you know, the one biggest comment I heard on the Titans, which is the biggest indictment of this team, you have a great run blocking offensive line. Nobody ever mentions how they pass block, because if you notice in the game, when they do a play action pass, Mariota has no time. They're already there. Nobody, you know, that's why I'm just like, you know, it doesn't matter that Tannehill is going to be in there. Tannehill, if people saw him in Miami and think that he's going to just all of a sudden become some savior, then they've got another thing coming. And, you know, I've told plenty of Titans fans here in Nashville, if you think that Tannehill is going to save this Titans team by becoming a starter and become a different guy, then I've got a beach house in the middle of South Dakota to sell you. And it's going to be great in the winter.
Well, it's you know, again, that might be one of those that we might disagree on. I'm not a big Mariota guy. I think you have to stay healthy to see what kind of quarterback you can be. If you're not going to be healthy, then you're not, you know. So,
I'll give you.
Speaking of Tennessee, though, go ahead.
I'll tell you this about Mariota. Mariota, I'm not taking up for him. Of course, he's made some bad throws this year. I've definitely watched the games. I'm not saying it's all his fault, though, is what I'm saying. I'm saying that all of this is not necessarily his fault, because the thing, looking at the Titans team, tell me the last quarterback they developed outside of Steve McNair. You can't give me one. Right. And tell me the last wide receiver they've developed outside of Derek Mason. You can't give me one. So to me, this is in part an indictment of the organization that they can't develop a quarterback and have not been able to develop a quarterback over almost 15 years.
Well, Reggie and I can tell you, I mean, they really haven't had a signature offensive player since Earl Campbell, really. I mean, Steve, certainly, but I'm talking about in terms of like a dominant guy that just, I mean, oh my God. Earl Campbell people would hit him and bounce off like a ping pong. Like he was just that good and that big and that great. I know you didn't forget Warren Moon in the run and shoot offense. No. And Warren Moon, I should say, well, quarterback, right? Dominant with all the numbers he had. But the only thing with Warren, like they got him at the, after he played in the CFL. Like they developed Earl Campbell, like he came in and everything. And I'm agreeing with you. I mean, Warren Moon was just a super great quarterback, and one of the most accurate quarterbacks in the history of the game. People don't know. Tennessee Tigers, man.
TSU.
Wow.
Ooh-wee.
Yeah. So you get Austin Peay this week, I think, and
that's going to be scary this weekend.
At this point, yeah, because at this point, what is it? What's the sort of the momentum of what they want to do at this point? I mean, they lost all those games. What are they looking for to do at this point, especially with Austin Peay coming in?
Well, I talked to Austin Peay and the cupcake it used to be. I can definitely tell you that. They used to be a cupcake until Will Healy got there. Will Healy was the coach there, and now he's at Charlotte now. But he turned that program around and recruited a lot of local kids that had championship ties and that basically could have went to bigger places but came there. So, he's definitely turned that program around. That program is, they beat Jacksonville State, which Jacksonville State, for those that don't know, has represented the 1AA a couple years in the FCS championship game. So they're no slouch. They beat Jacksonville State, so that's huge. And they beat back-to-back ranked opponents the last 2 weeks. So for Tennessee State, they're just playing for pride at this point. I mean, honestly, I don't see them winning the OVC. And I mean, they do have one of the more talented wide receiver duos in the 1AA ranks, which is getting wasted right now. You have Chris Rowland that basically is he's third on the list for single season catches in a season, and he's top 10 in yards right now for a season. So I mean, he's having an incredible season. I like to call him the Black Wes Walker, but he's having an incredible season. I'm serious. He's 5'8", and he can lines up in the slot, and he just does everything. He's a
dinkin' dunk dude. Yeah, gotcha.
And he makes people miss. And he returns punch, turns kicks, does everything. And it wouldn't surprise me to see if he gets an NFL look next year. But and then they got another guy, Stephen Newbold from Florida, and this guy's got moves on the outside too and can make some things happen. So, they have a dynamic duo there. It's just the last 3 games, last 2 games is just turnovers. Turnovers has killed them. They had 5 turnovers against Murray State. 5.
Yeah.
And then 2 of them were at the end of the half. They cost them at least 10 points. So the thing is with them, they've got to, if they're going to win this game, they got to limit turnovers. They got to, basically, defense has got to step up because defense has been their Achilles heel this year. I mean, their defense to be honest, I mean, they've missed a lot of tackles, blown a lot of assignments, and every team is making them pay for it. If they're going to win this game, they have to have the game of a lifetime on defense. And their defense actually played well in this past game against Murray State. It's just the turnovers killed them. So if they can actually get their defense to reprise this same effort, get the offense to hold on to football, they might have a chance. But just looking at the season and how it's gone so far, I'm not very sure they're going to be able to put it all together. I would like for them to, and I would like for them not to get embarrassed on homecoming, but I can't say they won't because it just hasn't gotten put all together.
Wow. Well, that will be something if they don't. And, I mean, the aftermath of that will be interesting with that. Look at a few games before you get out of here, too. Clemson and Louisville. I'm assuming you're picking Clemson to beat Louisville. Louisville, a crazy win over Wake Forest, 62-59. That was absolutely insane. I was at that game. Absolutely insane, 62-59. Louisville at home. Who wins?
Louisville's going to at least pinch them, but they're not going to win.
Well, there you go. There you go. West Virginia at Oklahoma. I'm assuming Oklahoma is going to continue to win.
Yeah, Jalen Hurts. I want to see that. I want to see him end up in New York at the end of the year. And I think this is the game where he gets back on track to do so. Oklahoma by at least 3 or 4 touchdowns. And West Virginia's quarterback may be out too. He used to be an Oklahoma quarterback. This was crazy.
Yeah. Wisconsin, who nobody, maybe at least we haven't really talked about, but nobody's talking about. They look really impressive against that conference, but they're on the road to Illinois. I'm assuming they take care of business.
Yeah, the Fighting Lovies get smacked this week. I think their running back is going to. I think the running back for Wisconsin is going to definitely put up at least 150 yards, and he's going to give me 4 touchdowns this week. Yep.
Talking college football preview here on Mike Patton. Florida, South Carolina. Florida coming off a loss. South Carolina doing what they do. Can South Carolina pull off another upset?
No, they're going to get brought down to earth this game. They are playing with a second-string quarterback, so that that needs to be known. And Florida's going to be pretty upset after that loss. So I expect them to take their frustrations out on South Carolina and put them back in their place in the SEC East.
Arkansas not that good. They host Auburn.
Well, we'll say this: Arkansas does have one of the best running backs statistically in the SEC. But other than that, I can't tell much about that team. They have 2 graduate transfer quarterbacks that have been playing musical chairs at quarterback. So other than that, Auburn's going to give them fits, and I think Mr. Nix at quarterback is going to continue to do his thing. The true freshman.
Number 2, LSU at Mississippi State. Mississippi State hasn't been that bad. And you look at LSU, again, they coming off the win against Florida. No trap game here?
I would say this. I heard what you said about Mississippi State not being that bad, but Mississippi State got beat by Tennessee in Knoxville last weekend. Tennessee's not that good. This going to get ugly. Call Bubba Sparks in.
Interesting game, Oregon at Washington, both ranked teams. Oregon is the team that went toe-to-toe with Auburn, and you look at Washington. So Washington at home, who wins this game?
It depends on the running game. If the running game gets stopped by Washington, then yes, Oregon can win this game. Oregon, Mr. Hubert, this is your game. This is your game to show the world why you are one of the top quarterbacks in the nation. I think Mr. Hubert gets it done. Oregon beats Washington.
Yeah, I think that's a win on the road during the college football preview. 3 games before you get out of here. Mike, Michigan at Penn State. I think that might be the game of the week in terms of Penn State's kind of under the radar. Michigan, I'm not sold on their coach, pro and college, the brothers. Be honest about it, but they're on the road. Really, I'm not. Reggie will tell you that, but that's a big game there. Penn State holds serve at home.
I think Penn State does, and as far as Mr. Harbaugh, met him one time.
Yeah.
Good guy, but good guys don't always win. And this ain't this time. And I think even with Gaddis on the sideline, they're making a big deal about, him hiring Gaddis by just talking to him over the phone. He never actually met him before he hired him. But I don't even think him being on the sideline is going to help. I think Penn State is going to win this game. It's a whiteout at Penn State this time, too. Nah, they're not coming out of there with a win.
An interesting game. Boise State at BYU. BYU has had some good wins, not ranked, and Boise State is 14th ranked. I think this is a big game for BYU at home.
I'll say this. Boise State is kind of hearing the whispers of, busting that playoff bubble and actually making it as an outside team. And honestly, I want to see it happen. So I think in order to do that, they have to handle BYU, who apparently I think is starting a brother at quarterback, which, I thought I'd never see that happen. But anyway, I could go a whole different way with that story, but I'm not going to do it. But, it's not going to end pretty for BYU. I think Boise State gets it done, and they continue to march on as they try to disrupt the college football playoff.
Yeah, not a big Boise State person, especially Mark Pugh and what he said. Anyway, that's another day for another story or whatever the case. The final question in sort of my neck of the woods. Wake Forest had a bad loss after leading their division at home against Louisville 62-59. They get my Seminoles coming to town. Can the Seminoles beat this Wake Forest team?
Well, I'll tell you what. Wake Forest needs to get healthy, and this is the week for it. I don't think Florida State has got anything for them. I think Wake Forest gets healthy, gets back on that winning stride, and, man, Mr. Taggart, I feel sad for him. I wish things would get better, but I can't really see him getting better this week.
Yeah, man, yeah. And I just hate that he's got to go through, Jimbo just kind of left it, and he's just kind of dealing with it. So we'll see what happens with that. Mike, before you go, let folks know how they can reach out to you and follow you, sir. I appreciate your time as always, sir.
No problem. You can find me on Twitter at General_MP. You can find me on Instagram, _General_MP. And, of course, you can find me in the booth this weekend watching Tennessee State play Austin Peay at TSU's homecoming, where you get to see the best band in the land as voted by the undefeated.
That's what they said. I don't know. I don't know. I've seen Virginia State. I've seen Hampton. I don't know. Them bands are pretty good, but we'll take your word for it.
Give me the aristocratic bands. Give me the aristocratic bands, and I mean, every time I watch them perform, and I'll tell you this, just for everybody out there, if you stop following me, if you're friends with me on Facebook, I always do a live of the band. So you're gonna get a live version of the band at the game, every game. You'll get it. So this week, just stay tuned. I'll have it up.
Tennessee. That's
I'm
right.
going to let you judge it.
All right, and see how good they are. Mike, I appreciate you, brother, man. God bless. Be careful, okay?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Mike Patton, of course, always good to have him on. Excuse me. On the Batchelor News Radio
The White House Report.
Bakari, the morning after the debate, how did your candidate do, Kamala Harris? And what do you think is going to happen the day after?
The day after, she's going back to Iowa, and then she'll be in South Carolina for South Carolina State's homecoming, both good places to be. I think that it was a good night for Pete Buttigieg and Amy Klobuchar. I think that Corey and Kamala still have a path. I think they definitely have a path. And one of the things that people are watching is the slippage of Joe Biden, and I'm not sure that the person who replaces Joe Biden will be Pete Buttigieg as much as people want to believe that. I think all in all, this race is wide open, and I remind people that at this time in the 2004 race, John Kerry was polling at 2% and 3%. He was polling 7th in the Monmouth poll and Quinnipiac poll, and still came back to win Iowa. So it's a lot of time left in this race, and I think she's doing the things necessary by doing the blocking and tackling, and she had a decent performance, but we all know that she can do much better.
I'm April Ryan, AURN News.
Welcome back to the pad. Thank you for joining us. And Reggie Howe, LA Batchelor, as we wrap up this evening. And Reggie, you know, we talked about Elijah Cummings, and I'm sure you probably saw or heard about at least the debate. What was your thoughts on what was said and your take from the debates there? Hold on, Reggie. Hold on 1 second here.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Yeah, we're in trouble.
Yep.
There's no rock solid like 44. There's no passion. The ones like O'Rourke and others out there that are passionate just don't have the appeal nationally in order to bring votes over from the independents and some Republicans. And it was beat up on Elizabeth Warren, but Joe Biden clearly has been wounded.
They did. They beat him. They tried to beat up. But you know what, though, Reg? I thought she held her own, though.
Yeah, she
I
did.
thought she held her own.
Yeah, she was prepared for it. But, again, when you see a candidate that's kind of flustered because they don't have enough time, they raised their hand and tried to take shots at her, and then she tried to answer, then they moved to somebody else. To me, it was too many people on the field. 12 people trying to get information out was just too many. And I don't like the way it was done. Personally, I think that, in my humble opinion, that the Democrats have to get together and say, look, what is it going to take for you to drop out and run for Senate? What is it going to take for you to drop out and support the candidate? We need to narrow that bad boy down to either about 6 people and really get some ideas, because right now it's a food fight. And Cory Booker and Kamala Harris are just the token Negroes that are just up on the stage, you know. And police brutality should have been number one with the gunning down of the beautiful queen down in Dallas, Texas. That should have been front and center. You know, what are you going to do about this systemic problem of police brutality against people of color? I mean, it's not imagination. We've seen too many cases over and over again. FBI had already said that the police academies and police officers have been infiltrated by the white supremacists. I mean, that was way back when President Obama was president. So come on now. the information is there. The data is there.
So what do you, because, you know, Dr. Leon, who was on before you got on, was talking about that, you know, a lot of these candidates are going to fall by the wayside because the criteria to be in a debate is going to get even tougher. So a lot of them are going to, the Bookers and the Yangs and all them guys are probably going to fall by the wayside. But what do you want to see moving forward? Because want to, I mean, ideally, you and I know what we want, but ideally, people are going to want to be able to vet certain candidates. So you don't want it just to be down to 3 from 12. So what do you want to see moving forward?
Well, basically, I like to see the money, follow the money, because even Joe Biden is having money problems right now. He's burning through cash left and right. He's having problems. And he might take in $17 million, but he's spending $18 million. And how can his candidacy sustain? So I'm just saying, let it play out.
You know the thing about the thing about Joe Biden and too, Reggie, not to cut you off. And people don't understand that the man is he's not like some super rich guy. Like he's just been a career politician. So whatever he's getting is what he's getting, you know, in terms of fundraising. He's not using his own money, that kind of thing. I mean, remember his son, he had to borrow money from Barack Obama for his son with his brain situation. So, you know, I'm not making excuses for him. I'm just saying, it's not like, you know what I'm saying? I mean, it's not that simple.
Well, what Biden needs to do, in my opinion, is start getting some leather shoes and start hitting the pavement if he can.
Right.
You know, he can have rallies where they can have town hall meetings and people come in free and talk to him face to face. You know, he's not going to hit door to door, knock on every door, you know, in certain districts because physically it's not possible. But I'm just saying that they have to come up with a better strategy in order to raise money. And what I see right now is the Democrats need to unify, need to start they got to keep it stupid simple. When you came to the white supremacist occupy the White House, he said it over and over again, we're going to build a wall. Who's going to build it? Mexico. We're going to build a wall. Who's going to pay for Mexico? And it was stupid simple, but it resonated. Democrats, I don't even know what their charge is. Do you? I don't know.
Well, let me play something real quickly for you because I know you don't like this guy, but I'm going to play it and get your thoughts because he gave an overall view of the debates and about the Democrats moving forward.
The White House Report.
Governor McAuliffe, what do you think about last night's debate, the highs and lows?
I thought it was a tough night for the second-tier candidates. They had to do something because as we move forward in the November debate, they're not going to be in it, so I think the field's going to get narrowed. I thought Warren went in as the front runner, and she took some incoming, and she's run a very good campaign, but she has to answer this question of whether middle-class taxes are going up or not. Pretty fundamental issue. Bernie, I thought, dealt with the age issue. Biden talked about his issue with his son, moved on very quickly. So for the front runners, good night. For the others, didn't really make much of a difference. I thought a good night for Pete Buttigieg and Amy Klobuchar were the two I thought that, made a difference. But does it make a difference overall? No. A long 3-hour debate. I think a lot of people went over and watched the Washington Nationals win to go on to the World Series.
I'm April Ryan, AURN News.
Reggie, I want to ask you. I know you don't like. I know. Wait. I know you don't like Terry McAuliffe. So we already established that. But what about his thoughts about the first tier people, the second tier people, number one, and then when you look at Elizabeth Warren, again, the concern and the thing that people keep saying is that she's got a plan for everything, but can she pay for everything? Is that going to be a problem for her?
Well, I'm going to surprise you, L.A. Much it pains me. I agree with everything that clown said, and he's a politician. Wow. You give the man credit. I mean, he's a snake oil salesman. He's a slickster. I will tell you real quick, this is what he did in Virginia. He gave the convicted felon the right to vote temporarily because his friend Hillary Clinton was running then. As soon as he left office, that initiative was gone. So just think about that when you think about Terry McAuliffe, when he's saying he helped black folks. It was a temporary bill he signed, and then as soon as he...
Well, I don't care for Terry McAuliffe, so... Yeah, I don't care for him.
I'm taking the type of games, and we know also in the state of Virginia when they're trying to do the crucify the lieutenant governor, Justin Fairbanks, how they're trying to get him. And this is a Democrat party that tried to keep a black man from being governor because Coon Man, the current governor, that was his nickname in college, Coon Man. they knew that a black man had a chance to be governor for 7 years in Commonwealth, Virginia. They couldn't have it, and that was both sides of the fence. So it's dirt on both sides. And again, McCullough, he's a politician, shrewd politician, but I had to agree with everything he just said.
Okay. And then what do you think, about when you look at the field, who do you think is going to drop off? Because, he said the first tier will stay, the second tier won't stay. Well, I don't know about money, though, because Yang got a lot of money. Klobuchar says she can stay in it. She got a lot of money. I mean, so money, I don't know.
Well, I disagree because Joe Biden right now is hemorrhaging money left and right. He can't run those ads. As long as you have money out there, you can still run ads to at least try to get name recognition out there. So I'm still saying, let's see how the money shakes out, because these donors are going to start drying up. And once it starts drying up, then you're going to see the field narrow. It's all about following the money.
What about when you hear the situation about, again, like I said, with the criticism of not only Elizabeth Warren but Bernie Sanders is, how do you pay for stuff? How do they get past that? How do they get past that part of it where they got to show that they got to be able to pay? If you're going to do Medicaid for all, how are you going to pay for it? And that's what Klobuchar and all these people are talking about.
Once again, giving Republicans credit. They've been beating this drum for the last 20 or 30 years. They control the narrative. Democrats did not have a think tank, but they should have been out there, former President Obama, and talking about the health care then. They used that as a lightning rod to divide the country. And also, let's not forget, the pharmaceutical companies are under a major lawsuit right now for the opiate. And let's see where that money goes, because they got to pay out some big money, just like the tobacco company did. And just a follow-up to that, in my humble opinion, if you would look at two things, it's just my opinion as we go down the road. Number one, just look at these people who are hitting these lawmakers like the NRA and others and see where that money is flowing through to try to get certain people in pocket. All you need is just enough, 1 or 2 votes in order to control the narrative. And I'm saying right now that some of the red states and purple states follow the money and see who's going to be safe and who's going to have problems.
Do you agree with the final question? Do you agree with Dr. Wilmer J. Leon, who we know, that says that Mayor Pete will not make it to the final stretch because America's not ready for gay? America's not ready for the inauguration where he's got to hug and kiss his partner. America's not ready for the inaugurational ball where he's going to dance with his partner. America's not ready. So he won't make it that far based on that.
For now, yes. 10 years from now in the future, I would say no. But for now, with the outcry of the White House being elected, it showed that how racist and division we still have in this country. It's paining me to say that, but we see a lot of racism. And again, remember when former President Barack Obama said that he now, his second term, hopefully support gays. You know, LA, down in North Carolina, black folks lost their mind. And you comment on that. So it's not just white folks. You got some Christian black folks that are going to be pissed. So I'll let you tag team on that because you made an excellent report about that one, where you saw reports first up close and personal.
Yeah, I just don't think that black people, being the black Christians that we are, for the most part, is ready for that visual or those optics. I don't think they're ready for that. They may talk it, and some people may talk it, but like Dr. Leon said, Hillbilly Bob in Alabama or Brother Black Leroy in North Carolina ain't ready to be seeing that. That the country's not ready for that. So he can make some moves, and hell, he might even be the vice president, but he won't be president. And that's just because of where this country is, and like you said, the optics and people ain't trying to see two men kissing at the White House. That's just the reality. It's not my reality. That's the reality of society. So, you know, you're right. So you're right. So we'll see what happens. Reg, as always, my man, I appreciate you, bro. God bless. Be careful, okay?
My friend, always here for you.
Always here. I appreciate you. If you miss any part of the broadcast, go to our website, thebachelorpadnetwork.com, thebachelorpadnetwork.com. Click on the Now Playing button. It'll play every podcast of every show that we have going on. The Bachelor with a T, thebachelorpadnetwork.com. Enjoy and listen and follow us on Facebook at Pad Nation, Pad Nation #2 on Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, LinkedIn, LA Bachelor. We thank you for joining us on the Batchelor News Radio Network.
How do you mend when your world's apart? Ooh, carry on. Ooh, from the start. Somehow we fell in love, then fell right out of touch. And ooh, that was hard. But ooh, here we are. And it's easier to walk away than to look for what would make you stay. Remember when we first met? We were having so much fun. So now how could we both forget? Telling each other we're the ones. We would make love at the drop of a hat. Remember that? Yeah.